Hello and welcome to Giant Mess, a super sloppy sports and entertainment talk show that's hosted by Giant Mess. That's me, the Real Cinch Neal Lynch. On this here pod, we like to talk New York Giants football, Mets baseball, movies, TV, and comedy. I like to mix in some life lessons and funny stories along the way. On today's episode, we got Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, the sequel to the hit animated feature from the team of Lord and Miller. We'll also talk about the Netflix release Unfrosted, the Pop-Tart story, which I believe was written and directed by Jerry Seinfeld. And then we'll wrap things up with The Wonder, a psychological thriller that came out a couple years ago starring Florence Pugh. Without further ado, let us get started up in here. Kick things off by reviewing Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. This came out, last year, 2 years ago, 2023. I really dug the first film. I thought the first film was pretty toit, pretty nice. And so I was kind of excited for the sequel. I wanted to watch it with my daughter, who's 5, but she was just not into it, which is weird because she was so into Spider-Man for such a long time when she was 2, 3, 4. One of her favorite rash guards. If you're familiar with rash guards, when we go to the pool or the ocean, Spider-Man. She was just all about that Spider-Man. What? And then I guess she changes schools. She's got new friends, and those new friends maybe aren't into as Spider-Man, aren't as into Spider-Man as she is, and so that's when maybe she lost her passion for old Webby. But I decided to pop this on. I was hoping to sway her and get her to hop on board, and she just was not having it. So I ended up watching it myself. Highly anticipated, and it did not disappoint. Basically, Miles Morales and Gwen Stacy. They're traveling. They're interdimensional, multidimensional, multiversal. Just hopping through all the universes. Very meta, for sure, because I think this was. They took the approach of, I guess, directly but indirectly responding to a lot of the critics that maybe are not so familiar with Miles Morales as Spider-Man, and saying like, well, I don't have to fit into what you believe Spider-Man should be. It almost felt like they were saying to the people, and I don't know, I don't think it's comic book fans, but maybe it is comic book fans who say that Spider-Man is Peter Parker is Spider-Man. You can't have Miles Morales as Spider-Man. And so I felt like this was kind of like a response to that, because there was, basically the whole third act is, them, that spider vampire dude from the future, whoever that guy was, who I would like to know more about him, but it's like him. There's the 4 or 5 Spider-Man woman people that have to go across the multiverse, and they basically have to make sure shit is almost like the time police in Loki season 2, the Time Alliance or whatever it was called, where they have these enforcers, these guardians, these cop looking dudes that kind of they go through the doors, they go into a time, a year, and they basically, anything that is going kind of branching out off the timeline that makes it deviate from what it's supposed to go, they eliminate that threat, quote unquote. That's what it felt like this team of spider people were. It was like, okay, we know that, and it's revealed later on that like every Spider-Man, woman, child, person has to go through these certain things, these absolute points, which I guess they just mentioned in X-Men 97 on Disney Plus. Like Beast mentioned it in episode 8 or 9, where it's like, even though we have this multiverse where things, sliding door style change here or there are differences between them. They also have these, they all share the same absolute points, events, if you will. And so it's like in almost every universe, Peter Parker's uncle Ben has to die for him to become Spider-Man. And for Gwen Stacy to become I guess it's what, Spider Ghost? Forget what her name is. Like her father, the police chief, has to die. In another multiverse, like what was it? Like the Indian version of Manhattan, Mumbai Hatton. Um, like that Spider-Man, that the police chief has to die in order for So it's like they're basically saying you can't fuck with these absolute events, these points of interest, because that's how things are supposed to go. If you alter this, it's following along with the tropes of most time travel movies, where it's like if you go back in history and you change this shit, it could dramatically alter the future and throw everything out of whack. And with this, it's like they're just trying to preserve the storylines. It is so meta, dude. So meta. So very meta. And so in this, they're like, Miles Morales, like, you do realize that your dad has to die. Or he comes to that conclusion himself, I think. And he's like, well, you all fell in line, but I don't have to do what you did. Like I'm going to live my own life. I'm going to write my own story. So I almost felt like that was kind of like directed towards the people that are like, only Peter Parker could be Spider-Man. I could be reading into that way too much, but that's how it felt when I was watching. It was like, oh, it's almost like he's talking to this lead spider vampire dude who I feel like we only got like little glimpses of that guy, but I was like, he's a vampire? What happened? So he's talking to him, but like it's almost like he's talking to the audience and saying like, I don't have to do XYZ. That doesn't have to happen to me in order for me to continue being Spider-Man or what have you. So I mean, the animation style was off the chain. So nice, so different. I like how it changed depending on who was featured, right? Gwen Stacy had that in her universe, quote unquote, had that kind of animation style. It felt a little more, I don't even know what to say. I can't say punk rock because they actually did have a punk rock Spider-Man. It was more British punk rock, but for Gwen Stacy, it was much more. It was almost like much brighter, bolder, vibrant colors, watercolor almost. So that was cool. And then in Miles Morales' universe, basically, they talk about oh my god, that was fucked. So yeah, I mean they set it up for a third movie, which I can't wait for the third movie because the way that they ended this movie was so cool. Across the board, I mean, I there are hardly any flaws really when you think about it. So uh to have the conflicts be between Spider Man, woman, child, person was was an interesting twist. It's like there's not really an antagonist here. You're trying to find the antagonist, and the antagonist is um. So yeah, I'm interested to see how the third one goes because the way that this ended was so tight, so nice. I don't want to say 10 out of 10, but goddamn, it was pretty close. Music was awesome. Love the soundtrack. Uh, I think the themes and messages, the social commentary that was great. They weren't trying to they weren't really trying to bash you over the head with it. But I do think that felt like the pacing was good, felt like the structure was there, it was coherent. Um, the tension between Ghost Spider, and Miles Morales is Spider-Man, which I guess I keep wanting to call him Webby, no Webbs, because I, talking about my daughter and how she loves Spider-Man. Like we used to watch Spidey and His Amazing Friends on Disney Plus, where it's like these it's an animated series, but it's like they're smaller, bigger heads, like obviously targeted towards younger kids. And in that, it's Ghost Spider, Spider-Man, Spidey, and Webs. Like so, I keep wanting to call Miles Morales Webs because that's his name in that series. But nay, he's Spider-Man, y'all. You got to get used to it. What a freaking! I don't want to give anything away that might spoil this for anyone who hasn't seen it, but we're now in the spoiler section, so let's dive on in. A cameo from Donald Glover. Oh shit. That was awesome because that was the rumor for so long, was that he was going to play Miles Morales in the live action Spider-Man. So uh it was so nice to see. I mean, I don't know. I don't think that, how old is Donald Glover now? He's got to be in his 40s, right? I just don't think that's still on the table. Just real quick, check his age. Yeah, he's 40 years old. So, the long time rumor was that he was going to play Spider-Man in the uh live action feature, and it just never came to fruition, but that was fun. Like it was towards the end of the third act when Miles Morales is running by, and the real live Donald Glover is just sitting there in a cell, and I don't even know what he says. It was just like such a classic moment, and it gave me a little goosebumpies. So yeah, and the twist at the end where it's basically like almost like Back to the Future 2, I think, when he goes back to 1985 and he goes back to his what he thinks is his parents' home or his home, and he's like, what the hell, there's like bars on the windows, and he tries to get in, and like it's not his home or his parents' home, it belongs to another family, and he quickly realizes that he's in an alternate 1985 where Biff Tannen is like the head honcho, everything's gone to shit, there's crime everywhere. That's kind of what happened at the end here, where he thinks he goes back to his home universe, and it turns out no, he's in this alternate universe where he's the Prowler. So I don't know. I kind of vaguely remember the first movie because I was so sleep deprived and just like new dad brain, whereas like foggy as fuck. But I think in the first one, his uncle is the Prowler, and he ends up having to take him down, and his uncle dies. And so like in this, you see there's a big painted mural on the side of a building paying honor and tribute to his uncle. And then he goes back to um the alt home universe, and his uncle's alive, and he thinks that his uncle is still the Prowler, but it turns out nay, old Miles Morales is the Prowler. So it's like, whoa, shit. So got to deal with that now. Really liked how they ended it, and it obviously setting up for a third one. It's obviously gonna rule. So very cool. Will we ever see a live action Miles Morales Spider-Man movie? That feels like now that Spider-Man is fully being integrated into the MCU, or has been fully integrated into the MCU, has had 3 movies with Peter Parker. Do they now transition to Miles Morales? Seeing as how popular these animated features are, is that going to now give them the green light for a live action one? I don't know, but hopefully Donald Glover's in that in some capacity. It's just funny, dude. Love him. So yeah, and who knows with the X-Men now are now pretty much like they're being introduced into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Is that, and all signs are pointing to Deadpool. I mean, they've hit on the multiverse a few times now, right? They kind of kicked it off with Doctor Strange. They now have Deadpool 3 is Deadpool and Wolverine, but that Loki season 2, like I mentioned, had like the time multiverse time travel element to it. And so Deadpool 3 is going to continue that. I think that's what, everyone's saying. So I wonder if that is like, in addition to kind of maybe rebooting X-Men franchise, that they'll also revisit Spider-Man and have Miles Morales be more of a part of it. Would be cool. And Ghost Spider Ghost, Gwen Stacy. Interesting to see that there was also some cameos from Andrew Garfield from Amazing Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man Dos. So interesting to see that they included that in there. Because I don't know did they include that Peter? Like, did they include what's his face in the first one as a cameo? I can't remember. I mean, I love Jake Johnson. Who doesn't? So him being, I guess he got back together with MJ in his universe, and he has a baby, and the baby is like, you know, kicking ass. I thought that was pretty good, and the fact that he's like in a like tattered, dirty bathrobe and like slippers the entire time, so good. So yeah, I dug it, and I highly recommend it. You don't need to see it with children. You can just let your inner child out and roam about for a little bit. Yeah, so that's Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Let's talk about Unfrosted, the Pop-Tart story. I don't know that I'm going to spend a ton of time on this. I just, I'm a fan of Barstool Sports. I follow it. I remember was this last Monday? So I went out to drinks with an old friend from high school nearby, came back, and I was like, I'm still kind of revved up. I'm not tired. I just had an exciting meetup where I was just like catching up, 15, 20 years of catching up. And so you're just kind of, I don't know, you just revved up, right? And so I was like, I'm not going to sleep. It's only 9:00. God, the benefits of not having to travel to New York City and back. Holy shit. Where it's like, oh, I get 3 hours of my day back and I can go to like a happy hour nearby and be back by 9. Sign me up. So yeah, got back at 9 and it was the first thing I saw when I popped on Netflix. I was like, oh, Unfrosted. I think I had seen some ratings or reviews prior to its release, and it was like, it's going to be meh. It's not going to be anything crazy. But I know that Jerry Seinfeld went on Fly on the Wall, David Spade, and Dana Carvey. I think he'd been on another show promoting. I know Jim Gaffigan was also interviewed by Fly on the Wall, Spade, Carvey. So he was talking about it. So it's like, the typical promo circuit, right? And so it was on, I guess it was top of mind. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to turn my brain off and just enjoy a dumb comedy. Like, let's just enjoy a comedy where it's like, we know it's not going to be, super structured plot wise and really tight character arcs. No, it's not about that. It's about the jokes, comedy, which, we've all talked about the death of comedy over the past 6-7 years, where it's just like, it's just gone. It just doesn't exist. It's like, instead, you see all these other genres getting comedy infused into it, which I love. I'm all for comedy. In terms of an all-out, just straight-up comedy, you just don't really see it too much too often. And so this, I don't want to say it was reminiscent of like Airplane or Naked Gun, but it definitely was along those lines. For people saying that it's not, I watched it and I was like, did I laugh out loud at every single bit or joke? No. But I was like, I kind of appreciated it. It's just like, this is absurd. It's literally a fictitious portrayal of how a fucking breakfast pastry got popular and was invented. How serious do you want a comedy to take that? And they didn't take it seriously. It went off the rails. But for people saying that, oh, this wasn't like Jerry Seinfeld's stand-up, it's like, the guy, have you not watched his stand-up? Like, put the sitcom aside, put his sitcom aside, self-titled sitcom, because that is a product of Larry David. That's mostly Larry David's influence in writing and comedic style fused with Jerry Seinfeld's. Jerry Seinfeld's stand-up is his alone, right? 100%. So this felt more in line with what Jerry Seinfeld's stand-up is, which is like observational humor, uh, that's not raunchy, that is, I mean, the dude loves cereal and Superman. It's like he's a kid from I believe he grew up, that was his heyday, right? As a kid was the 60s. And this is set in the 60s, right? 63, I believe. And it just tells a story about the rivalry between Kellogg and Post. And I wonder if this got the green light based off the success of something like Barbie, or I think there was another movie that came out where it's like deeply rooted in branding, where it's almost like, I used to work in branded content, they call it, where it's like, well, we have an advertiser who has a brand that they want to get out in the world, but they don't want to buy your traditional advertising, whether that's a 30-second spot on TV or a full page in a magazine or a banner ad online. It's like they want to be a little more, a little deeper, a little bigger, a little better, bolder. Well, not really, but a little bit like more immersive or whatever, integrated. And people were so resistant to it for a long time, and now they come around because it's like, well, we don't have the money. We need the money. So I think that after the success of seeing how Barbie performed with Mattel's backing, it's like, I guess Kellogg went whole hog into this on the Pop-Tart story. So Seinfeld plays an executive at Kellogg. Jim Gaffigan is like the heir who's taken over the throne at Kellogg. Amy Schumer plays the rival Post's executive head honcho. Her assistant is Schmidt from New Girl. Don't remember the actor's name. Sucks, and I apologize. I mean, you want to talk about cast? I think I mentioned this. I forget when, but I was like, how come no one's made an Expendables type movie with just comedians? Like all the top comedians, like Expendables 1 through 4, they had like just about every possible popular action star you can have. It's like, why don't they make a movie where it's just like, top comedians A to Z? And it's just like, and every time someone appears on the screen, you're just like, I can't believe this has actually happened. They're all in the same movie, because for so long, and I think that's why Stallone ended up making that series, that franchise, it was like you have Stallone in a movie or you have Schwarzenegger in a movie. You can't have them both in the movie. Eventually, they did both get into a movie, and it was pretty awesome. What was it called? Escape Plan, I think it was. They made a sequel. I don't think it was that good, but why not, man? I think that's the wave. That's the way you should see a lot more movies going, especially with the success of something like the Avengers franchise, So I was just thoroughly, I mean, it's like Mikey Day from SNL, Kyle Mooney from SNL, not necessarily a comedian, but they had a bunch of guys from Reno 911, Bobby Moynihan from SNL. They had what's his face from 30 Rock, the kind of goofy blonde Southern guy who plays Steve Schwinn. And even like Seinfeld admits, Schwinn was unnecessary in that movie. It's just like, he just knows that Schwinn was a thing during the 60s. He had a Schwinn, and so he wanted to just kind of shoehorn it in. And I feel like there was a lot of that. It was basically, he must have sat down to write this, and he was like, well, I can churn out a 60-minute movie, but I need 30 more minutes. So I'm just going to pull in like every pop culture iconic thing that happened in 1963, like JFK is part of the movie, like completely over the top banana land, where played by Bill Burr, who does a awesome job, probably the best job in the movie. And Mikey Day and Kyle Mooney are snap, crackle, and play 2/3 of Snap Crackle and Pop, which I thought was funny. I mean, that goddamn funeral scene is so ridiculous. And they call it out. I mean, Schwinn, I mean, like, for you to, and I brought up Barstool Sports at the beginning because Stephen Shea, apparently, who I follow and like a lot, he said that he gave it like a 9 out of 10, which is absurd. I don't think it's a 9 out of 10. But then Jeff D. Lowe, who's Lights Camera Barstool's like main movie review team, he said it's the worst movie ever made. Give it a 0 out of 100. It's like, no, y'all are both wrong. And the fact that Jeff D. Lowe calls out against Stephen Shea for his over-the-top review, and it's like, and you just gave it a 0 and called it the worst movie ever made? Spoiler alert, if you made it through the movie, not the worst movie ever made. There have been, I can count on one hand the number of movies that have had to stop because I was like, this fucking sucks. And I'm sure I don't know, maybe there are other movies that might be worse that I didn't stop where I got the end and I was just like, what the fuck did I just watch? That was not the case with this at all. It was like, this is just a fun, lighthearted, like, you can't take this seriously, dude. It's just a straight up 100% comedy. This is not to like get all emotional, which I feel like that's the main MO these days. It's like, well, it has to have emotion, it has to be heartfelt, it has to tug at the string, blah, blah, blah. This is just like, nope, fuck that. We're doing all jokes all the time. Every scene, every line, every other line is a joke. A lot of it didn't make sense, and that's the whole point. It's absurdist. They Melissa McCarthy plays Stankowski, right? Seinfeld's like, if we're gonna beat Post, like Post has this secret thing going on. We know we've tasted it. It's gonna be off the charts. They're gonna put us out of business. Blah blah. You know how top corporations act, like it's always the end of the world. They're gonna put us out of business, and like we need to come up with something quick. We think this is what it is. We need to create it before they do, and I can't do it without Stankowski. And so Stankowski is played by Melissa McCarthy. She comes in and doesn't do shit. And it's just like, well, if we're gonna get this done, we need blah blah blah. So it's like, well, I thought that's why I got you. It's like, nope. So she brings in just a ridiculous team of food not even food experts, just like pop culture icons. Jack LaLanne, the fitness guru, Steve Schwinn, the bike guy, Chef Boyardee, and what was the last guy? It was like the German guy who may or may not be a Nazi who's gonna go to Argentina. So, it was just absurd, up and down, left and right, all around. And the fact that they got Hugh Grant, who gives a really really good performance in this, and is one of the few serious actors. Most of the other actors are, I mean, I know he's been in comedy films, but you wouldn't necessarily describe him as like, oh, this is a comedian, comic actor. He was amazing as Tony the Tiger, as this like classically trained Shakespearean type actor who wants to be respected, but is like, you're Tony the Tiger, you're a mascot. The mascots all band together. He basically leads a January 6th type insurrection on Kellogg headquarters where he like gathers all the angry mascots. It says it's time for us to fight back. He's wearing the friggin' stupid hat that the one guy wore with the horns, the buffalo head, I guess. So, I mean, it basically was just like, we're gonna make as many references to what happened, what was popular and tops in 1963 as we can. And basically it was like almost every single major advancement or invention or creation was just like happenstance. Like the fact that there was like kids in a dumpster diving discovered the ingredients for Pop-Tart and ended up naming the Pop-Tart is beyond, dude. It's fucking insane, but that's the point. It's a comedy. Like what else? Rice Krispie treats. They were dumpster diving then, and they came up with the recipe for Rice Krispie treats. It's like, a lot of people like to think that like, oh, our greatest minds came up with these things. And a lot of times, this is not. I mean, it's kind of related, but not really. I used to work my dick off at this one company, and wasn't getting anywhere. Like, it didn't have any wins, successes, blah blah blah. I completely phoned in one live event. I was like, yeah, man. Yeah, we'll live stream this event. And I'm in my head, I'm thinking it's gonna get like 100 views. Like no one's gonna watch it. And then it got like millions of views, and everyone's like, Neal, congratulations, man. That's amazing. Great work. And I'm just like, I literally didn't do shit for this. It's just like, I got lucky. And that I guess that's, the theme or the message here is that sometimes you just get lucky. Have I gotten lucky since then? No. I mean, not in certain, yes, in that respect, yes, I've gotten lucky, but I haven't, I've not gotten lucky in many other aspects or regions of my life. So, it's a fairly quick movie. The key is, I mean, they kept harping on it. The key is the name. The key is the name. The key is the name. Like they might have the better product, but the key is in the name. And they fucking nailed it. They were right. What would you rather eat? Country Square or a Pop-Tart? I had to look it up. I was like, there's no way that Post named theirs Country Squares. There's no fucking way. And that was a running gag too. It was like every name that they came up with was awful. And they would all treat it like, oh man, that's a hard decision. They're all great. It's just like, but getting back to the Steve Schwinn bit, Schwinn had no right being there. He's a bicycle inventor. What the hell is he know? I mean, eventually they cobble it together of like, the German contributes this, Jack LaLanne contributes this, Shep Boyardee contributes this, and they somehow loosely all tied together, and that's how they come up with the Pop-Tart. Pastry, not the name per se. And so Steve Schwinn, they want to test it. Like, can it work in a toaster? Can a kid, like it needs to be simple enough for a kid to make. We don't have to rely on mom to make it. So we're appealing to kids, and the kid can make it. And so, yeah, that scene, well, they treat it like it's the Oppenheimer, like they're all in the bunker with the dark specs on, watching this test thing. Steve Schwinn comes out in a full on fucking hazmat suit or whatever, looking like a old timey astronaut. And all he's doing is putting like, a Pop-Tart in a toaster and then just having it pop back up. And they dramatized it and made it, exaggerated the fuck out of it. And it was like, you get the joke, and it's like, where's this going? And then he ends up blowing up and he dies. And you're like, okay. The funeral scene that they have, I think, is the best scene in the movie. They Snap, Crackle, and Pop are there, and like I guess this is the best. The wife is there. We didn't know he had a wife, but like the wife is there, and she's like the one person who's like sitting there like, what the fuck is going on here? Because like it was like a serial based funeral where it's like they lower the coffin into the ground and they pour milk into it, and then they pour a bunch of cereal into it, and she's like, what do you do? What is happening? Snap, Crackle, Pop come over and they fold. What did they fold? I completely forgot what they folded, but they folded it like soldiers would fold an American flag and hand to the widow of the veteran who died in combat, that kind of thing. They did that, but they would talk as if they were doing like the 21 gun salute, or like they were like soldiers, like that, Rebel, up. Oh my god, the Quaker Oats guy. I think his name is, I'm gonna butcher it, but he had that show Review on Comedy Central. He played Ben Franklin in that one episode of The Office. Is it Andy Daly? Yeah, it's Andy Daly. Andy Daly, man, needs to be in way more stuff. Way more stuff. He's just plays it. He can play it straight and get laughs. Like in this one, And maybe that like him having played Ben Franklin on The Office had some influence of him playing the Quaker Oats guy, because he plays the Quaker Oats guy and he's constantly you know acting like was it a Shaker, Puritan, Pilgrim? No, the Amish. So I dug that. Um, I mean, there were scenes, the milk industry, there's the sugar industry, the milk men of America, they have a mafioso type deal with the cereal industry where it's like, they're worried that now with the Pop Tart coming along that their business is going to go under and the tank. And so they're kind of like threatening Jerry Seinfeld to be like, you keep up with this and you're going to have to blah blah. And so they ends up getting abducted. One of the milkmen is played by Christian Slater. Um, he gets abducted, taken to the farm where they meet the head honcho of the milk industry, I guess, who played by Peter Dinklage. Um, and then they go down to where Cuba, Panama, somewhere like down there to meet like the head honcho of sugar, El Sucre, who's basically like a crime boss. So, they were like, how the hell do we raise the stakes in a comedic way on this movie? They could, I mean, yes, you could very easily, like, you look at Air, right? I don't know why Air popped in my head, um, which is not great. Air should never pop in your head. But Air, the movie about how the Air Jordans were created. There was not a whole lot of like action in that movie. It was a business movie, a la The Big Short or Dumb Money, where it's like we're gonna follow the ups and downs, trials and tribulations, challenges, obstacles that face this company and this particular executive who's risking it all and blah blah. They could have very easily gone that route with the Pop Tart story, but it's like that's not what they wanted. That's not what Seinfeld wanted. That's not what the comedians sign up for. They sign up for comedy. And so the more you can raise the stakes in a very weird, odd way, like it goes all the way up to the president, like they're gonna do that and take advantage of it. So I'm not knocking them for it. I mean, how do you even make this a 10 out of 10? I don't know. But it's not the best movie ever made. It's not the worst movie ever made. It's just a nice, easy watch where it's like you can turn off your brain. A lot of it's dumb humor, but it's like sometimes you just need that. It's like sometimes you just need it, or you just need it. So I'm not gonna knock it too much. Um, yeah, I mean, most of the reviews from everyone else is like, yeah, it's like a 5 out of 10. You know, I think the critics were a little more harsher on it, as they always are. The audience was like, I mean, I saw one review from an audience member on Rotten Tomatoes was like, as a kid growing up in the 60s, I was really highly anticipating this movie to see how the blah, 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 blah. And I had to turn off and apologize to my son for subjecting him to this. Like, so you convinced your son to watch this movie and you told him what? Like, son, this is what my childhood was like. And then you got like a fucking bonkers comedy movie. And you're like, oh my God, they've just pissed all over my childhood. It's like, okay, so you don't have a sense of humor. Cool. Um, I mean, like Seinfeld when we're first introduced to Snap, Crackle, and Pop, he kind of like intimidates Kyle Mooney, does the acts like he's trying to be tough, but he's really scared. It's just the little things here and there. I thought Amy Schumer was fine. Like Jim Gaffigan was fine. You know, it just I don't know. I mean, there was a lot of weird, like, the whole mutant ravioli thing with the sea monkeys. I was just like, okay, let's roll with it. Like, it's kind of growing on me the more times I see it and hear it. I have no idea how this is affecting or impacting the movie. But I dig it. So, yeah, I don't know. You got nothing else to do. You feel like you want to turn off your brain, and just have a laugh or two. Put it on. So that's Unfrosted, the Pop Tart story. I'll briefly talk about The Wonder. This movie came out 2 years ago. It's a psychological thriller drama directed by Sebastian Lelio. Sebastian Lelio, what has he done? I looked up his credits and I didn't recognize many of them. Two of his credits involve the name Gloria. There's a movie called Gloria, and there's a movie called Gloria Bell. Um, I think most of his movies really focus on female lead protagonists, which is cool. I want to say he's from Chilean, but that's probably not right. Um, and I think this is probably his biggest, most well-known effort. Is it written by him too? It's co-written by him, along with Emma Donahue, who wrote the book from which this is based on, the adaptation of the book, and then Alice Birch also worked on the screenplay. But it's about a tale of two strangers who transform each other's lives, and a story of love pitted against evil, which I don't agree with that assessment. I don't agree with love pitted against evil. I don't think it's, well, I don't know. I mean, like, how do you define evil? You know, is evil? They say that the best villains, right, are those that have good intentions, right? Those make the best villains. They see the world in a certain way, and they want to make the world better, but they do it in a fucked up way. Like, they do it in a way that does not respect others and whatever. They have a vision and they stick to it because they think it's better for people. Thanos, probably a good example. It's like, there's too much shit going on. Let's just wipe out half the population. Thanos was right. Oh boy. Uh, Thanos getting mixed into a Wonder review. Cool. Yeah, I'm not going to spend much time on this. I watched it strictly for Florence Pugh. Pew 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 pew. I love this woman. I'm infatuated with her so hard. I could watch her. I could watch her watching paint dry. Like, it's incredible. Her acting chops, and I was thinking about it more to myself today. It was like, and I had been putting this off. I kept seeing it on Netflix. I kept seeing it, and I know it has great reviews and ratings. I just kept putting it off because I was like, I don't know if I can. This feels like a drama where it's gonna be. It's just gonna. It's, I don't know. It's just not gonna appeal to me. It's not my demo. I know it's probably gonna be a good, quote unquote, good movie that the critics are gonna like, but it's gonna be a drama about this. I don't know what. And then the movie opens and it's like, basically, um, Florence Pugh plays this nurse from England, and it's 1862. She is called, she served in the Crimean War, which I didn't know about, is sent to a rural village in Ireland, and the Irish are not fond of the English. And so she's basically entering a territory where she's already despised just based on being English. And she is hired to closely watch this girl named Anna O'Donnell, who has been fasting for 4 months and looks perfectly healthy. Like, she's not dying, she's not weak, and that's according to the family. Hasn't eaten in 4 months, so she's become kind of a celebrity, local celebrity, where everyone starts to think that she's a saint, including grown ass men. Not all men, but like, there are some men. There are people that come to the house, they visit with her, and they like are, they're basically presenting this as, this is a miracle. She's a saint. She's an angel. Whatever. It's religious ties to it. And so the people come, they visit, and they're like, "Oh my god, it's so amazing! What a great story!" And they try to pay the family, and the family's like, no, we're not taking any of your money. We can put it towards the church or something like that." So yeah, whatever. But the movie opens, so you like, in the trailers and the promos and whatever, like, you just see the 1860s Ireland, right? And then the movie opens and it's like a movie set where you can see, like, there's I don't even know what you call it, piping, rails, a rig. It just looks like a construction of a set that isn't finished yet with a house. And I'm like, holy fuck, whoa, this just, I mean, I'm already my mind is a pretzel. Like I can't wrap my head around what is happening right now. And so that what a great opening because it sets the tone. Like, no, 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 this is gonna be psychological. And it is for the most part a psychological thriller, which I love those. But I probably should cut down on because of the night terrors. But so I was like, immediately, I'm like, oh, I'm in on this movie, especially with the music. I mean, the soundtrack, if you take away the soundtrack, this movie is half as good. So the soundtrack did a lot. The score did a lot to propel this movie into, okay, this is horror, psychological thriller territory. And, it really set the tone and it really cued you, beautiful cues to like get you to feel a certain way. So immediately I was like, oh, and there's a narrator, and the narrator is like saying, okay, this is a story about blah blah blah, where people, you know, believe what they want to believe, you know. And I think you could the correlation or the ties to modern day is like people don't no longer uh well, I don't know if they some people how do I phrase this? Some people blatantly ignore the facts because they want to believe what they believe. They believe what they believe is the truth, and everything else is false. Right? There's that kind of people, and then there are people who only believe the truths that align with their beliefs. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I think there it is interesting how there were ties to modern day themes. So very cool. But Florence Pugh, I mean, Jesus Christ, what an actress! And I was thinking about it, and I was like, I think it's because so much of her acting is within her face. The acting that her face does, but her face doesn't do these kind of exaggerated, over the top, really, that kind of expression. It's like she's doing very little with her face and does a lot with her eyes, and that's enough. I mean, that's more than enough. And it's this really powerful, strong performance. So, yet again, um, I mean, Jesus, that scene where I mean, so you spend most of the movie trying to figure out, okay, what's going on here? Like, and so she's a nurse, and she is basically they have two nurses. So she's a nurse from England, who apparently has like she's addicted to codeine or some kind of liquid. I need to get my hands on it, but it looks like cough medicine. She does a spoonful, and she's just like on another planet, like orgasmic. And you kind of find out that like she did have a baby, but then lost the baby very young, and then it drove the dad away, and so now she's by her lonesome, but she held on to the baby little booty shoes. And so she like every night apparently does this drug and like looks at the booty shoes and passes out. Yikes. So that, you know, should help you to understand why she is so emotionally invested in this girl. Um, and ultimately goes to great extents to save her. So, but she's basically playing detective, because it's like she's science. She is solely based in truth and facts and evidence. But then the other nurse that they get is a nun who obviously represents religion. So Florence Pugh represents the science, nun represents religion, and they butt heads, science versus religion. And even on this committee, there's like a 5 dude, 6 dude committee, and you can go from left to right. It's like the non-believers who are more science and reality based, and then you have, as you go right, you have the extremist religious type zealot. Um, man, what a movie! And so that's you spend the majority of the movie trying to, you, the viewer, along with Florence Pugh, trying to figure out like what's going on here. Something's not adding up because there's no way this is just like a miracle. Um, and then based on that opening scene, my head, I like from the moment that opening scene happened or opening shots where it's like you're seeing this construction of a movie set. I'm like, wait a second. So maybe it's not 1862 and it's really modern day. And like this, I was just, my mind was going all over the place. Turns out, no, it is really in 1862. And I guess they just had the trauma of the Great Famine, which I don't know that they really touched on or hovered on much. So I must have missed that part, but that makes sense that like we just had the Great Famine and now we have this woman, this girl who can fast forever. Um, and over the course of the story, uh, you know, Florence Pugh starts to put it together, like she figures it out. And it turns spoiler alert. Okay. And I mean, the actress who plays the girl, what a performance. Holy shit. That was like one of the top child performances I've seen in a long time. Like just so goddamn committed to the role and what the that character was going through. Um so Florence uh finds out she's keeping a close eye on things and she finds out that the mother when she kisses the daughter good night or good morning like grabs the girl's face and kisses her and it's kind of like open mouth and she's like chewed up the food and is passing the food through to the girl because she asked the girl like hey so you haven't had anything to eat like what did you eat last or like what and she keeps like how do you sustain yourself how are you able to like how are you not weak or whatever and uh so she goes manna from heaven and then you come to find out no the manna from heaven is the mother doing a little baby bird action spitting the chewed up food into the daughter's mouth and so she calls this out to the committee and the committee's like no like you can't do what you're doing and there's a lot of disagreement and discord between the committee members themselves and she ends up Florence Pugh ends up getting together linking up with this journalist who's interested in the story because it's kind of spread over the land and she ends up hooking up with him. She's like I didn't think you liked me and I was like Florence Pugh said that to the guy and I was like you didn't know that he liked you. I don't think I knew that you liked him. For the way you were acting. What the fudge? So uh they have a nice little sex sesh, little bang sesh, really cool. But I was like, maybe this is just a like it's 1862, it's rural. So it's like you don't have many options. Is that what's going on? Because I can't see this happening in real life. But yeah, she gets involved with him and there's I mean one of the scenes that were emotionally and just viscerally got to me was when she's like she finds out that the mother is feeding the daughter through the chewed food open kiss so she's like you are no to the mother and the family she's like you guys are no longer allowed to come up here and visit her or see her um anymore and once she puts the stop to that which I don't that feels like a big plot hole because it's like she's not staying. Florence Pugh is not staying at the house. She's staying somewhere else that's not close by. Same. Hmm. So the nun and her take shifts. So when Florence Pugh goes back and sleeps, the nun comes on. When the nun goes and sleeps, Florence Pugh comes on. But still, you can just tell from how the nun's acting and behaving and her proclivity for religion that she wants this miracle shtick to keep going, you know? And so that's where I'm like, ooh, I don't know how, because if Florence Pugh puts the kibosh on the family visiting the daughter, that means the daughter's not getting the food. And you can tell because she's getting weaker. She can barely stand or walk. She's wheelchair bound. And so, uh, you know, but I'm like, would the nun have kept that up? Would the nun have really? I mean, the nun had asked, "Is this the doctor's orders?" And Florence Pugh lied and was like, "Yes." And so she's like, "All right, we got to follow the doctor's orders." So I can see the nun like falling in step with that. So that makes sense. But yeah, so cuts off the family. The daughter takes a turn for the worst, and so you know, Florence Pugh hatches a scheme to get her out of there. And ends up trying to burn the friggin' her bedroom and ends up catching on fire. I was like, how the hell is she gonna get out of this? But there was a scene before that where she's like, you're dying and you need food. And so she takes a tube and is like, oh my God, the sound effects on this, where she's shoving the tube. I mean, you don't really see it, but she's shoving the tube down the daughter's mouth and you can hear it like going down her throat and like the daughter gagging. And she comes to her senses and like pulls the tube out and apologizes profusely. But it was like, oh boy, what the fuck? If I'm the daughter, I'm like, I don't want, you're not allowed in here anymore. Get the fuck out. But yeah, so the Florence Pugh makes a plan to save the daughter. She's like, your mother's trying to, your mother, and she's like, but why? So this is the part that I don't totally understand. Because the way that I saw it, you come to find out over the course of the movie, I guess towards the beginning, when Florence Pugh first gets to the family's house where the daughter is fasting, she sees a photograph, and it's a photograph of the family. It's the father, the mother, the daughter. I want to say the older daughter. I don't know what she is, and then the brother. But Florence Pugh takes a closer look, and you can see that the eyes are painted on. And apparently, I don't know if I have it here, but there was a lot of post-mortem photography where photos were expensive during their set time period, and usually only a wedding photographer was only ever employed to take a picture of the married couple. But if a family member died, they would prop up the deceased and have a group photo taken so as to remember that person. So I guess in that photo, the brother, who they had mentioned had passed away, was dead in the photo. And so they just painted eyes on him. Like, oh, fuck, dude. It's so crazy. And spoilers, you find out that the brother was fucking the sister, the daughter, the 9-year-old. Ooh. Yeah, so she was sexually abused, but she confesses that she fell in love with him. And so she's like okay with dying because then she gets to be reunited with the brother. And I was like, what's going on here? I just watched Iron Claw, where it's like these fucking brothers are committing suicide so that they can meet their brother who died in the afterlife. And now I'm watching a movie with the daughter who's fasting, is now dying and is okay with dying because she gets to reunite with the brother that was sexually molesting her and abusing her. Cool. What is happening? Dear God. But yeah, so Florence Pugh hatches this scheme, and she's like, well, the family's going to leave to go to the church, leaving the daughter behind because she can't physically go. And so I'm going to get her out of there. And the way she convinces her, she's like, so you're dying and you're going to die, and then you're going to wake up as a different girl. And so the girl just goes along with it. She's like, yeah, Anna is going to die, and then I'm going to wake up as Nan, as this new girl who's not going to remember all the bullshit that happened to her at age 9. I totally knew that when the nun and Florence Pugh went in front of the committee, and Florence Pugh was like, I'm telling the truth, I'm not lying. And they asked the nun, like, hey, did that happen? And the nun was like, no. I was like, yeah, I could have bet my life savings on that she was going to fucking lie. And then, but interesting enough, when she runs into Florence Pugh after she burns the fucking house down, she's like, I had a vision. Yeah, I saw an angel on horseback riding away with Anna. It was like, yeah, you had a vision? Like, I think that was her like little subtle coy way of being like, I know what you did, and to be honest, I'm okay with it. Good for you. Because the parents were killing her. And that's what I didn't understand was, so the mother knew that she was dying, was okay with her dying because she knew that the brother and her were in this incestuous relationship, and she was like, you know, I want them to die because they're evil. They're an abomination to God. Or did she not know about the incestuous relationship and she was like, well, I want her to pass on to heaven to be with her brother. That's the part I got a little confused on. I don't know. Either way, like it's like the mother wanted her daughter to die. She I guess I think she was the also the person that said only the good die young, not in those words, but she basically pulled a Billy Joel. It was like only the good die young. So I guess that was like her way of being like, oh well, she's truly good if God is taking her now as opposed to later in life. What a movie! But yeah, Florence Pugh pulls it off. Pulls it off. And the guy, the journalist who was initially against it, he was like, "We're gonna go to jail if we get caught. Like, no way, I can't put my life on the line. I have a job. Like, I can't do it." And you find out, nope, he ended up coming around and coming in on it. And so when they go to, I don't know where they were. I guess they said Ireland, and they were on getting on a boat to go to Sydney, Australia, and they had to give their names, and they all give like fake names that were the first name at least were very close to what they had. So it was like Florence Pugh's character was called Elizabeth Lib Wright. That was her name. And then when she was getting on the boat or giving her name to the guy, checking him in, it was like Eliza Cheshire. And I immediately thought, oh, Cheshire Cat. And then the guy whose name was Will something, he's now Wilkin Cheshire. And then the girl who's now posing as their daughter, whose name was Anna O'Donnell, is now Nan Cheshire. And I was like, Cheshire Cat, mischievous, deceptive. Oh, is that why they picked Cheshire? Little the Alice in Wonderland type take. I thought that was clever, and they got away with it. Good for them. Good on them. So what did the critics say? The atmosphere is absorbing and the story is fascinating, but the wonder of this period drama really lies in Florence Pugh's remarkable performance. Hell yeah, can't agree more. And it's in like why call it the wonder? So they call the girl, the fasting girl, a miracle, and they also call her the wonder because they're like, this is she's a saint, she's an angel, she's a miracle. And then you come to find out about all the sexual abuse and like what the mom I guess is now doing to her, even though that's where I was confused because it was like the mom's feeding her, but I guess she was feeding her with the intent of not feeding her, like slowly wean her off to starvation. But it felt like throughout the movie that she like wanted to keep the shtick going for as long as possible. I don't know. But then towards the end, the narrator, or was it narrator? I forget who was like, uh, every child is a wonder. It basically was the message, the takeaway there, and that we should treat them as such. So cool message. What did the audience say? Although the movie is slow and contains some questionable storytelling choices, Florence Pugh makes it hard to look away. I agree. Top critics gave it a 7.5 out of 10. All critics 7.2 out of 10. Audience was 3.7 out of 5, so a bit lower, I think. IMDb rating was 6.6 out of 10, and I gave it a 7. So I'm right there in the upper sixes. Lower sevens. Yeah, so I'm right there with the critics and the audience. It was pretty consensus take. Pretty agreeable across the board. So yeah, that's the wonder. Do I recommend it? I guess if you're a big Florence Pugh fan, you're gonna get a hell of a performance. I think there were some things that, yeah, I guess there were some questionable storytelling choices here and there. But I do like that this could have been just a straight drama and it would have been like, meh. But they added in a really great soundtrack and score. They added in this wrinkle of like it's like we're gonna open in present day or what appears to be contemporary modern times with a set, and then we're gonna kind of pan or track into the 1860s. Like it was just, I guess that was that way of saying like, hey, this movie's about beliefs, and you need to suspend your disbelief. I don't know. Uh, anyway, that's the wonder. I still got to review Fallout. I still got to review Three Body Problem, which I just finished up. I think X-Men 97 might be wrapping up, so I might have to recap that, give my thoughts there. And then we got, there's always Mets and Giants talk, right? Always. And people have been calling for a life episode about life. Um, so I need to get going on that. A lot to talk about, a lot to cover. But for now, those two potent words. Adios, muchachos.